So we've got our shells and we've got our little thing over here. Now, one problem is, let me just get some reference over here. So there's a black strip that goes around and then up and over. So that's kind of a problem. So what we need to do is go ahead and build that black strip in before we do our panel loops. So what I'm going to do is actually I'm going to hold down Control Shift, isolate this little green piece here, and then I'm going to go to Subtool, and I'm going to go to Split. I'm going to go Split Hidden. So now I've got two separate subtools. I've got this piece here, looks like a little Death Star, then I've got this piece here, which is just this little green circle. So if I Alt tap this circle back here, you're going to see I'm back to my original one. Now, what I'm going to do is this bevel right here, if I take this piece and this piece is a little bit thick. So what I'm going to do is hover over this edge and go to my Z modeler brush, which for you will be under B, Z. Just type in the letter B, then Z, and then M. That'll grab the Z modeler brush. I have it assigned to Alt Q. I'm going to hover over an edge, and we're going to do, what are we going to do? We're going to do bevel edge loop complete. So I can just grab that middle one and just bevel, and now it'll give us a new poly group with whatever thickness we want. So I'm just going to go up, let's say about that far. If you want to make sure these lines are exactly horizontal, one thing you can do is just isolate that. So what I'm doing now is I'm just holding down Control Shift and just clicking on the pink area, and then Control Shift and clicking on any other areas that are still showing. And now I've just isolated this pink little strip in the middle. Alternatively, you could also do Control Shift, grab Select Lasso, and then Control Shift this edge right here, and that automatically selects an edge ring. And then you can Control Shift drag, and that'll invert your selection. So if you go to the side here, hold down Control, and you got Mask Pin selected. I'm just going to drag over these top verts, click to invert that, and now what we can do is just hold down Shift, and it looks like it's already pretty straight. I think the only things that are happening is this one goes up a little bit, so I'm just going to grab one of these verts, hold down Shift, and go straight down, and then with W, transpose, pulling up, will even out all the unmasked verts. So I'm straightening those lines out. Another thing you could do is you could, you know what, let's just make these obviously wrong. So like this one's up here, and then this one's down here, right? You can mask all these, and then Control-click to invert that mask. And it doesn't look like it did anything, but it did invert your mask. And then you can hold down Control-Shift, go grab Clip Curve, and then hold down Control-Shift, and you just clip it. And now Clip is going to pull any vertices towards that gradient line. So you can just find a midpoint here, and then you can just go through and clean it up that way. You can just pull it all up to that line. A lot of different ways you could do this. But anyways, we have this little isolated section here, and then we have this section here, this section here. So now I think we're safe to do panel loops on this Pokeball. So let's go ahead and do that. One thing we could do is, if we know these are both going to be shells, we could mirror this vertically in the Y. But let's just do a edge loop under geometry. We're going to go to edge loop, and we're just going to do panel loops and see what happens. So with our settings we had set previously, we just hit panel loops. And now if we do Control Shift and tap on this top part here, and then do Control Shift A, you'll see we have a big top shell here. You can go into solo mode. Your solo mode button might be down here. Mine's up here in the middle. And we've got a awesome little top shell on the top. And then we've got a little or a bottom shell here, and then we've got a little middle strip. So I think we're in good shape. One thing I want to do is go ahead and isolate these. So one thing we can do is we can go over here to split the parts, and anything that's not vert welded will be split to its own subtool. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. So now I got my top shell here, we got the medium strip, we got the bottom one. I'm in solo mode, so it's kind of hiding as I click through. If I unclick solo, we can see everything again. And one thing that I've noticed is that that little middle strip is actually inset just a bit. So I'm going to hold down Alt and tap that middle strip here. And if I go into solo mode, I can go into my Z modeler brush, hover over a face, and then we can do Q mesh. We'll try polygroup all, and it looks like that's going to work. So if you do Q mesh and you just push in, it'll actually just start snapping and in. Just like that. So now if I go out of solo mode, you're going to see I just inset that one edge poly loop thickness. Now of course you can just start pushing and then hold down Shift, and that'll just kind of push along that normal. You can add an edge loop in here first if you don't want to go back that far, or you could even slide this whole thing. If we hover over an edge, do slide edge loop complete, you can slide this whole edge loop forward and back, and that'll kind of dictate how far back your Q mesh will push forward and kind of get rid of those polygons. So it's kind of up to you, but I'm just going to leave it at the default here and just snap that right back. So I got our middle strip that's kind of inset. We got our top section here. We got our bottom section here. All right, so we got kind of a pokeball going. Now, one thing I don't have is a thickness on this mesh. And another thing I don't have is the fact that it's supposed to be flat. So one thing I can do is just like the trick where we were cleaning up the surface of the middle strip here. I'm going to hit W. I'm going to grab one of these back vertices here and then just hold down Shift and pull out. And now it doesn't really matter, because if I go over here and grab this end transpose line here, and then I hold down Shift and just pull back, it's going to want to flatten those vertices along this anchor point, which is right here. So I basically just kind of gave it an anchor point of the farthest back vertice, and now by holding Shift, I can just push that straight back. So now we can have kind of a cylinder that goes right straight flat into the Pokeball, which looks kind of like what's going on the Pokeballs I see. So with this here, what we can do is hover over any one of these squares, and we can just Q-mesh polygroup all again, and just pull that back. Now it's going to look kind of funky because right now the normals are inverted. If you want to, go down here to the display properties and you can hit double, and it'll look correct, but it's not really correct. It'll start doing some weird stuff. So what you're going to want to do is hit flip, and that will flip those normals, and now you're in good shape. I will say one thing I don't like is the fact that like these little triangles are in here. So I'm actually going to change this cylinder a little bit. I'm going to go hold down Control Shift and grab my select rectangle. Hold down Control Shift and just click this middle section here. And I think, okay, it just grabbed this front one here. So if I hold down Control Shift and drag, that'll invert my selection. And now if I do a geometry, modify topology, delete hidden, that'll go ahead and delete those faces. Now I'm going to close this hole with a kind of a poked face is what it would be in my eyes. You close hole and then you can just like put a vertice right in the middle of that face, or that mesh. So what I'm going to do is just hover over this edge. I'm going to do close. If you do close concave hole, it's just going to fill it with a spider web of stuff. Instead, I'm going to choose convex hole. And just with a default, if you pull and drag, it'll actually make like a little dome, which is kind of cool. But I just want to pull and just make it flat, just like so. I'm going to do the exact same thing on this back end here. So Control Shift, isolate, Control Shift, drag to invert. We're going to go ahead and I want to use my custom menu. Geometry, modify topology, delete hidden. And because we just did this operation, if you just click once, it'll just do the exact same thing. So now we have a little bit easier to work with cylinder for this thing.